Hello, my name's Fred McNeil, and you're watching QAC TV. And we're delighted you're joining us again with a great show we have. It's called Veteran Stories. Each week we have a local veteran come in and share with us their military experience. We laugh, we cry, and we have a real good time. This week I have a real good man, a Washingtonian, Steve Harty. Steve, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Fred.
Appreciate it. And I wish, Steve, I could say to you on March 23rd it was warm and spring-like, but they're talking about snow showers. Oh, Lord, enough is enough.
It's never going to give up.
Okay.
Not going to stop this year.
Steve, thanks again for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, tell us, let's go back, and we always start a little background. You grew up where?
Well, I was born in Champaign, Illinois,
Okay.
and that's where my mother was from. But when I was 12, my father was from Washington, D.C. There was no work in Chicago or Champaign, so we moved back to D.C. And I was there until I got drafted.
Okay, so and you went to, I think you said Blue High School.
Blue High School,
But
yes,
actually
South.
graduated from Anacostia High School Night School.
Well,
I got that right?
I got drafted before I graduated, so when I came back, I finished it.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So Uncle Sam interfered with
Yes.
education a little bit.
Yes.
Now, let me ask you, growing up in, 1950s, early 60s D.C., what was it like?
Well, the one thing I remember, the year I moved to Chicago, I'm from Chicago here, 1958, we wore shorts on Christmas Day.
It was that warm.
It was that warm.
And you were
yes.
used to, the wind effect and
Yes,
freezing
yes, it was
in the
cold.
Midwest.
Yes. And other than that, the Southeast was, at that time, it was a good neighborhood. I'm sure it's decent. I haven't been, I used to go through it every couple of years. I haven't been in 4 or 5 years, so.
Okay. But
Just
it
remember.
was a good place to grow up.
Yes, yes, it was.
Were you a sports guy or a car guy? What
I
was
played football for a Catholic school.
Did you really? Okay, you're a
Yes.
football guy. What
Yeah.
position?
Tight end, wide receiver.
Okay, great hands and good blocker.
Yes. Oh,
Okay.
yes, good blocker, yes.
Remember, as we get older, Steve, we get better every year. Right?
Oh, yes, yes.
I mean, you're
Scored
allowed-
more touchdowns.
You're allowed to- Now, let me ask you. So, Uncle Sam, Vietnam War, what year did you get the letter saying greetings from Uncle
October
Sam?
20, well, I left October 26, 1966.
Okay, so 1966. Funny, we went in the same time. I think I went in October 66 too.
Oh,
so you
okay.
you were called into service.
Yes.
2-year obligation in the Army.
Yes.
Now, where'd you have basic training?
Fort Bragg, South Carolina.
All right, Fort Bragg,
Yeah,
North Carolina.
North Carolina, North
Same place I had. Any good DI store? How was basic training?
Oh, it was great. I mean, it got me in shape. When I got drafted, I weighed 135 pounds. I came home after 2 months of basic training, I weighed 155 solid.
You were eating that good Army food.
Three squares a day, I wasn't used to that.
Okay. Do you remember your old drill sergeants by any chance?
Sergeant Jameson.
Oh, you did. Everyone. Isn't it
Oh,
funny?
yes.
Every veteran, whether it's Marines, Army, or whatever.
I can tell you the company number too.
Okay, what was the company name?
A82.
Okay, I'm impressed. I can't.
I'd
remember.
love to go back and see if that's still there, because there's no barracks when I was there.
That sounds like a
66.
field trip. Maybe we should do a show from Fort Bragg. I guess they're still there. I have no idea.
Oh yeah, Fort Bragg's still there, but I'm just wondering if because those barracks that I was in was from World War II.
They were all wooden.
Oh, wooden barracks,
That's what I
yes.
had. Okay. And then why do you remember the drill sergeant? Any particular reason?
He was hardcore.
Okay. He didn't-
Very hardcore, and then of course I had to stay there 2 weeks after we finished, waiting for orders.
Right.
And he became a real good friend then.
Okay. Because
So-
the pressure was off.
Yes, the
You-
pressure was off. Yeah, he was a regular guy then, so
Okay.
we got along very well after that.
Well, I think, like I said, everybody we've had on shares with us those drill sergeant moments, whether it's waking you up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, yes.
Or making you do push-ups. Or,
He used to wake me up every morning. He'd walk out in the barracks, everybody's getting dressed, making beds. He woke up, he says, Harty, did you sleep good last night? I said, yes, Sergeant. I slept like a baby. I was so worn out. He says, your boots kept me up all night yelling, Kiwi, Kiwi.
I was on the second floor of the barracks. Remember, they were all two-story.
Yeah.
And, Steve, I guess only a soldier like me can tell you the story. I wore pajamas. No, no one wore pajamas.
No.
They basically wore their GI issue shorts and T-shirt. The drill sergeant came up one morning. They flip on the light. Everybody up. He looked at me and said, "What in the world? We got a soldier in pajamas." He made me go down to formation in my pajamas. He said, "Gentlemen, you see this man, you will never dress like that in public." So guess what? Those pajamas went in the trash can. Okay. So, any other good Fort Bragg stories?
Well, when I went down in October, I came home in December for Christmas.
Okay.
In between our training.
Yeah.
Well, when we came back, I don't know if they ever did it to you, but they used to like to put us what they called a darn cockroach.
Oh, but tell everybody what that is.
If you made any mistakes or did something wrong, they'd call out the darn cockroach. You lay on your back, You put your arms, your legs straight up, and your chin and your chest, and you stay there.
And and either they had you move your arms and legs or straight.
And just stay. We kept us straight. And when we came back January 2nd, I think it was the 3rd, the company came up for formation at 5 in the morning, still dark out.
Sure.
And the CEO came out, and he said we were too slow. He put the whole company in the dying cockpit out in the middle of the street.
I wish we had pictures of it.
Well, you could hear a pin drop, and then you hear a voice back in the back, "Welcome back to the Army."
I remember, because it sounds like we were basic training about the exact same time. I had the same thing. I came home at Christmas and then finished basic. Remember how in my unit, you had to do the overhead bars.
You had to get into the vessel.
chow hall.
Yes.
But I remember at 5 o'clock, those bars were cold. And I mean, I could make it across the bars swinging, but just my hands would be freezing. And of course, you have a drill sergeant yelling at you, screaming at you.
Well, with that bar there, you had to be yelling at. But the one thing I remember about that's every meal you had to do it, go back and forth.
Correct.
But then that was on your PT test.
Right.
Well, the one at the PT test, the pipes were loose, and they didn't tell nobody.
Oh,
They'd spin.
Oh,
where
right.
the other ones at the mess hall were fixed.
Tight, yeah.
And so you were used to that.
Right.
You got on the ones that was slide.
It's a whole different thing.
Yes, different completely.
Because it seemed like we had to go up and back.
Yes.
Yeah.
The longer you were there, the more you went.
Yeah, because you pivoted or whatever.
Yeah.
When we were young, we could handle that. Now, where'd you go after basic training at Fort
I went
Bragg?
to Fort Dix, New Jersey for light truck driver. 64-810.
So your MOS was
64-810, yes.
Okay. Now, how long were you at Fort Dix?
Actually, about 8 weeks total. It was a 5-week course.
Okay.
But halfway through the course, I got pneumonia.
Oh, right.
And they put me in the
Pushed you
hospital for a
back.
week.
Okay.
Well, what happened, I missed the 3rd week, and I came back and did 4 and 5. But when the rest of the unit graduated, they told me I couldn't graduate because I missed week 3.
You had to have that week.
So I had to stay there for a week or two, waiting for the new cycle.
Right.
Wait until the 3rd week came up.
Just
go
to
to
do
school.
1 week?
Yeah, 1 week. Well, they would send me to the basic training company to drive them to the rifle range.
Okay.
Well, no drill sergeant's going to let a guy go out to the rifle range by truck.
Oh, no.
They never took the truck.
They made him walk or run.
They made him walk, run, everything. And so I stayed there for 2 or 3 weeks, and every week I'd go back to my company. I said, "Where's my orders? I'm ready to go."
Yeah.
Well, that's when they said, "Okay, you've got to go home for 30 days, then your orders will meet you in Vietnam."
Okay, now then the story gets
Then the
good.
story starts.
Okay, go ahead. Now tell everybody, because we were talking, Steve and I, before we went on. So here you are, you've gone through basic training, you've got your MOS, you're a truck driver, you're all ready to go, you get a little leave time, and then what happens?
Well, when everybody was leaving Fort Dix, going to California to head to Vietnam, they take their records with them.
Right, you actually you get on the plane with
Yes,
your
you
records?
carry them with you. And so I told them, I said, "Well, am I going to take my records?" They said, "No, you can't take them home with you. They'll meet you in California." Well, my 30 days up, I show up to California, and I check in, and they asked me where's my records were, and I said, "I don't have them. They're supposed to meet me here."
Right.
Well, after about 2 hours of searching, they came out and they told me, they said, "Your records aren't here yet, so you're not going anywhere until your records get here." And I said, "Well, I'm in no hurry to go to Vietnam."
Sure. Hey, California's not a bad gig right
No,
now.
no. The only thing I had problems, I couldn't leave the base. Once you got there, that was it. Because the guy that was my best man at my father's wedding lived right there.
Right.
And I got there a day early, as a matter of fact, to go visit him.
Right.
But once I checked in, they said, no, you're not going anywhere. Well, then, the night before you'd leave, everybody would spend the last night in a hangar at the airstrip.
Right.
5,000 men in one hangar.
And you have your duffel bag,
Yeah,
you're all ready to
everything
go. And
with
this is a Vietnam takeoff.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Well, my day came up, they called my name out, and they gave me an empty envelope. And they
Just an empty envelope.
They told me with my information on the front of that was all. And they said my records would meet me in Vietnam.
So they're not, and just so the audience knows, when you don't have records, that means, one, you don't get paid.
Correct.
No
Correct.
record of your shots. In the military, that shot card was so important.
Yes.
And they don't know your MOS. They don't know anything. You don't have an identity.
Well, they knew my MOS was because it was on my I had a driver's license
Okay.
from the military.
Okay.
But when I got to Cameron Bay, well, I'll go back a little bit.
Sure.
On the way to Vietnam, the flight was changed because we were supposed to land at Long Binh Air Force Base.
Right.
That night it was more the airstrip was.
Now, Long Binh, so everyone knows, was the big receiving place. Thousands of
Thousands,
GIs
yes.
coming and going every
Yes.
day, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And no, Benoit Air Force Base. Long Binh was the
Benoit.
base next to it. Benoit was Air Force
Okay.
Base. But when I on the way over, I didn't know where we were going. Nobody did. They detoured our flight to Cam Ranh Bay,
All right.
which is a large R&R center.
It's
Well,
where a lot of GIs, like you said, had
Those
in-country,
R&Rs.
beautiful beaches, great
Look like
stuff.
Hawaii.
Oh,
Beautiful beaches, crystal clear water. I mean,
yeah.
I get off the plane, they give them that empty envelope, they say, where's your records? They're supposed to meet me here. And I still didn't know that they changed the flight. Well, then they told me, they said, you're not going anywhere until your records get here. And I look around, there's paved sidewalks, there's grass, there's trees, there's beaches.
Hey,
I
I'll
said,
take
hey,
this.
I'm no hurry to go anywhere. Stayed there for 3 days. They called my name out again, gave
Now,
me back
when
my
they just put you in a barracks and you just couldn't go anywhere.
Well,
You'd eat.
they had us marching and police in the area and
Okay,
stuff like
okay,
that.
all right.
But they kept us busy. Well, they gave me back my empty envelope and put us on a C-130, which is a
Okay.
junk plane.
Sure.
And they said, your records will meet you where you're going.
You've heard this story before.
Yes. So I get to a place called Tuywa Air Force Base, right below Denali. And the Air Force Base was beautiful. Paved streets, grass, beautiful buildings.
You say this isn't a bad tour,
And
right?
you could see the beach from the
see the
mess
beach.
hall. And I'm thinking, this isn't such a bad place.
Yeah.
Vietnam's not as tough as they say. But we had lunch in a nice mess hall, fans blowing on us. Well, an hour later, they put us in the back of a deuce and a half.
Uh-oh. Then
took us-
reality comes.
They took us 15 miles down the coast to one base. It was about maybe 2-3 city blocks, barbed wire and tents and sand, and that's all it was.
Welcome to Vietnam, right?
Well, I check into the company, give them my empty envelope, and they tell me, they say, well, you can't drive a truck. I said, I got a driver's license. They said, but we don't have your records.
So you don't exist. Steve
no.
Harty doesn't exist.
No. But then they said that they seen on my uniform I had badges for expert marksman, sharpshooter, and they made me a door gunner for convoys.
So from trucks, deuce and a halves, to a door guy.
On convoys, on trucks. On trucks.
So- okay.
And I was there, well, the first week I was there, they put me on QC on the beach itself. Now, when we left to base, we had to drive another 15, 20 miles south, go over a mountain to Tuywa Bay.
Okay.
I mean, there was, like I said, mountains all the way around it, beautiful sand.
Beautiful, yeah.
And they had a concrete pier built out into the bay. I'd say it's about 200 yards long. And these gigantic freighters sit there. And if they sat there for a couple hours, you could see the bottom at 60 foot of water.
It's
You
beautiful.
can
I mean,
see it.
people, don't you think, Steve? I mean, I was in the Central Highlands. You're talking about the coast areas. One of the things very few Americans know is how beautiful
Yes.
Vietnam was and is, still is.
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
it's a beautiful the coastline. Anyway, so here you are. You're waiting for.
I'm
cargo to
checking
come in.
trucks in and out during the day, and then they decided they want to start one of night convoys. Well,
That's not good. I know that doesn't sound good to me. Night convoys. No.
But they ran by themselves during the day.
Okay.
I mean, every other truck would have a door gunner with them, and
Now,
it-
does door explain to everybody? Door gunner means what? You have a 50 caliber. What do you have?
well, the biggest we had was 60s
Okay.
on our trucks, and of course you had 14s, and sergeants had 45s,
Right.
and depending where you went in the country is what you took with you.
And this is 67 or
67, yeah, March 67
okay,
when I moved
okay.
there, yeah. And then I say they made me a door gunner on the very first convoy at night coming back. We went 20 trucks at a time. They hit the
You got
last,
hit.
trucks, and they shot up a couple of guys in jeeps. I was in the last jeep in the back,
Just blew it up.
and I couldn't even shoot back because I was in the back seat of a jeep with a guy on each side of me,
Right.
and you can't get a 14 out the
No,
side
no
with somebody
way.
sitting next to you. So after that hit, they came up with at that time there was a TV show on called The Rat Patrol,
Okay, I remember that.
where
yes,
they sandbag
yeah.
trucks. That's what
Driving
we
through
did.
the desert with 50 calibers on
Yes.
jeeps. Yes, yeah.
Well, a couple of convoys we were on, we had one truck with 450s mounted together,
Okay.
and that would take down Liberty.
You could take down New York City with it. I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But we had, I was on a 60 in the back of the truck. The very next convoy, they didn't know what we had done, and they were waiting for us. And so I was in country maybe 2 weeks before I was in the first firefight. And that night, nobody got hit hard. I mean, a couple guys got wounded, but that was it.
Just unloaded with the.
And the infantry came in as soon as we were hit.
Right.
They call in the choppers. They come in there and they found 14 dead bodies.
Okay.
So, and that's another thing I found out that
Why did they convoy at night? I mean, I know.
They
Just
couldn't
to
get
keep
enough
the
supplies during the day.
Okay, you got so much stuff being shipped. This is when the big build-up's happening.
Yes,
Right,
yes,
67.
67, yes.
LBJ sending everything.
Well, they ran a convoy hoping if they ran a bunch of trucks together, they wouldn't shoot them all up.
Okay.
Because if you ran one at a time, two at a time, like they did during
They'd
the
take
day,
them out.
they would take them out one at a time.
So the idea is send 20, and if one gets it, they would, you know.
Yeah.
Tough thing
so-
for us to say now, but that was an acceptable loss, right?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. And you know, the one thing I found out, I guess 15 years ago, I was very surprised. Being a structural iron worker, I used to go to Calvert Cliffs Nuclear Power Plant for
Right, right.
outages. Well, when you go down there, you have to take a shrink test.
Okay.
And it's just a bunch of screwy questions.
Yeah, yeah.
And I did it. I went down, I think, 8 years. And out of 8 years, 6 times I had to go see the shrink.
Really?
Because he had to see so many, a percentage of everybody.
Right, right.
I mean, didn't matter what happened. And the first time I asked the guy, I said, why am I here? He says,
Vietnam.
you have an average, going a high and low. If you get it too high in any category or too low, we need to talk to you.
Right.
And I asked the first time I asked, I said, well, why am I here? And he says, because you enjoy your work more than the average man. Now, how they got that in their test, I don't know.
I don't know.
But then about 8 years later, I went back. Every year, I used to go every winter.
Right.
And I took the shrink test. I went and seen the shrink. As soon as I sat down, he looked at me. He said, if I could do it, I wouldn't let you back in that plant.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, why?
Yeah.
He says, because you're the type of person, any minute you can flip out and kill yourself and everybody around you. And so I'm thinking, damn, I'm really messed up in the head. Then the next year, I was talking to the other guys, Vietnam vets,
Sure.
down there. And I told him what he said to me. I never told anybody before because I was
Right.
afraid to.
Sure.
And he said the same thing to every Vietnam
All the
vet.
Vietnam vets were whacking.
And then what they told me, which I couldn't believe, every Vietnam vet has a kill record on his record in the Pentagon.
You kidding?
If you were in an ambush or anything, they counted the
Combat
kills.
veterans. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they said how many kills you had. And I never heard that. I never heard anybody else talk about that
No.
since then.
So anyway, you're running convoys, you're in Vietnam, and you're doing this for a year, right?
Yes.
Okay, now did you, I guess at this point we should tell everybody, while you're doing all this, you still don't have any records.
No
Therefore,
records.
you're not getting paid. You don't officially exist, or what?
I was in Tui for 3 months, no paycheck. And my wife was sending me money to live on,
Okay.
you know, because you need razor blades, stuff like that. But I mean, you don't have to worry about
And in
food.
those days, we could live off $100 a month. if
Oh,
we had
yes,
to.
yes.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I lived on $50 a month.
Because you're
when I
getting
was
fed, you're
Yeah.
getting housed.
there. And you never have time off.
No, no.
So I think 11 and a half months, other than the downtime for the TET, I have one actual day off.
7 days a week, 24/7.
12 hours days, yes. Either nights or days.
So you just kept doing the convoys? Is that
Yeah.
what- yeah, okay.
Well, like I say, too, my unit moved in 3 months,
right.
and I'm still with no records. Well, apparently in 3 months, they found my records in Saigon, and they sent them up north to Tuiwa. Well, at that time, I was on board a ship coming down the coast to go to
The new
Long
base.
Bend,
Okay.
to the new base, yes. And 2 months later, it finally showed up.
Hooray, I can get paid.
But see, I found out that there's all this waiting time.
Right.
So if you go 6 months without a paycheck, they will discharge you.
Actually discharged you.
And I was counting the
So
days.
you were crossing fingers
I
and
was
toes.
going home. Yes.
Good for you. So now did you get a big back pay? Did you get a huge
Yes, I had to get a letter from my CO to go buy a money order.
to send it back home to your
Yeah,
wife?
they would not let you spend more than what you made in a month.
So you were a
back
fat cat there, right?
home. Oh yeah. Well, I had to pay off everybody owed money too. But
Okay.
so
So once you get your record, you're back on pay. Did you get back to driving trucks?
No.
Still not.
some I did, yes, but
Okay.
they stuck them to work on it.
Okay.
Like I was saying, depending where you went is what you took with you as far as hand grenades, smoke grenades, 60, 14. It depended where you went.
Now what? Now when you were, tell me any good convoy stories. I mean, was it continual being hit?
Well, the one we talked about earlier before the cameras on was about the Tet Offense of '68.
No, tell me about that. That's a good one.
Every video I've ever seen about the Tet, they talk about how we were caught with our pants down, which that's not true.
You see the pictures of the VC running through the American embassy and the
Yes.
GIs just kind of basically holding on.
Well, we knew something was happening.
Okay. Well, that much of movement. Lord, we knew they were moving, right? Yeah.
Well, they we're out stationed in Long Bend. We were 18 miles out of Saigon. And I said the same thing, depending where we went is what would be in front of the convoy.
Sure.
Now, being a light truck driver, we were always at the back of the convoy
All right.
because we were faster. We could keep up easier. right before that happened, we were listening on the radio back at the base,
Right.
waiting to see what's happening up front, if there's anything. The tanks were up front. It was we were going to a bad neighborhood, and the tanks were downtown Saigon before we pulled out our base. There was 18 miles of trucks and trailers on that highway.
So they knew something was
We-
up. Right?
they knew.
18 miles long convoy.
Convoy, yes.
Heading to Saigon.
Well,
Yes?
we were going to Tuiwa, which is northwest of Saigon,
Okay.
almost up to Cambodia.
All right.
And they knew once this tent thing started that it was going to be a while before we get back out on the roads again.
It was just a mess.
Yeah.
Now, how about in other combat situations? Or the convoy, would you get lucky and they stopped picking on you, or what?
Oh, no, they'd always take pot shots at us. And then, again, down south, we saw a lot of night convoys. Well, I think that I shouldn't say the dumbest thing the Army ever did, is on the trucks in Vietnam, they had a great big white star painted on the doors.
I remember that. Yeah.
And that was a
target.
target.
It's a target. Yeah.
So when we started running convoys at night, which they would hit every other day or so, we started stealing the bulletproof vest and flat vest,
Right.
and we take the strings out of the sides and lay them over the door and
Cover
star.
up the big white star.
Yeah,
That makes
yeah.
sense. Okay.
And that gave you double protection also.
All
So.
right. Now, I didn't do a lot of driving in Vietnam, but when I was in Korea, I drove the old Deuce and Half.
That's
from
what we
Camp
had.
Casey up there. And they were fun. We used to call them a slush box, like an automatic stick shift, I remember.
Oh, that's the old ones, yeah.
And they were fun.
Yeah,
but
we had
the
the new
only
ones.
thing, though, if you didn't load them right, I mean, I always had a little balance problem. I don't know what you guys found. Now, and you told me you got no R&R.
No.
Most GIs, after 6 months, get it because you didn't have records. You got no R&R. So
No
you literally
R&R,
didn't
yeah.
see your wife
No
for
money.
a year.
No.
What a mess, right?
11 and a half months I was gone.
11 and a half months.
Now, I went up, and when we moved down south on Long Bend, every month they have a Soldier of the Month competition.
Right.
And 3 times I was picked for my
Well,
company.
congratulations.
And I came in second and third, but never first place. So,
Now, what was the highest rank you reached?
Specialist fourth class.
Okay, Spec 4, okay.
They wanted me to go in for the E5 board. And so they scheduled it 1 week before I was supposed to leave.
They're going to try to get you re-enlist, probably.
Yeah. So I'd go for the sergeant stripes. That'd be cool, go home as a
Sure,
sergeant.
sure.
Well, I got a 2-week early job. And so then when they see my records, they said, extend 1 week and go home as a sergeant. I told them what they could do with the sergeant stripes. And of course, they told me when I left Vietnam, they said, well, don't worry about it. You'll be put up for the sergeant once you get back home.
Okay.
And
They never did.
They never did.
I mean, I love the military, but the military is the military. So you leave Vietnam, you discharged as soon as you got back to the
No,
States?
no, I had 7 months to go yet.
Oh, where'd they send you?
Well, I was given records for Fort Lee down in
Yeah,
Virginia.
Fort Lee, Virginia. Big transportation unit, yeah.
Yeah, so when I got my orders, I was still in Vietnam. Yeah, I was in Vietnam when I got them. I was supposed to go home for 30 days and report there. And I was telling the guys, I said, damn, I said, I'm close, I'm going to go home on the weekends.
Right.
And one guy told me, he said, why don't you go to the Pentagon, they'll change your records for you. You're a Vietnam vet.
Yeah.
I said, okay, I'll give it a shot.
Sure.
So one day I was on leave, I put my uniform on, went to the Pentagon, and it took me a couple hours to find the right guy to talk to. So I sat down, gave the guy my orders, and he said, what can I do for you? I said, I'd like it a little bit closer to home. I've only got 5.5 months left.
Right.
And he looked at my records, he says, where the hell you want to be, in your backyard? I said, you got anything there? Well, I got Fort McNair in Washington, D.C.,
Oh,
Southwest.
Perfect.
And I saw drove buses there at that time for 5 months.
Oh, well, good for you.
That's the
for
War
doing that.
College, so
Oh, okay.
they needed buses to take classes around and stuff.
So you ended up in D.C.
D.C.,
And
yeah.
you was at least you're with your wife, who you hadn't seen for 11 and a half months.
Yep.
Now, Steve, look, we've got about 5 minutes left. Do me a favor. You got a wonderful shirt on. It says
Yes.
Legion Riders. Now, tell me. Let's talk about that for a couple minutes.
I think.
By the way, before we do that, thank you for your service in Vietnam.
Well, thank
I'm
you for
sorry you
yours.
didn't get you didn't get your orders for a while. Okay. Oh, your records. I'm sorry.
The Legion Riders started, I think it was 10 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. And my post here in Centerville does a thing for the wounded veterans.
Right,
what they
wonderful
call it.
event, yes.
It's a great event. And so when I moved over here, I started riding with a bunch of people in my neighborhood. And I got one guy rejoined the Legion because I transferred here. And I told him, I said, next year when you guys go after the wounded warriors, wounded veterans, we don't like the wounded warriors thing, that I'm going to ride my bike and escort them.
Okay.
And so then somebody said, they got the Legion Riders thing. I said, well, let's check into it. And me and one other guy in my neighborhood.
Who ride motorcycles?
The ride motorcycle does. So we started checking into it. It took us about 3 or 4 months to get it all together.
Right.
But last month we celebrated our first anniversary.
Which was, and Kevin Rhodes from the state police, I think, went
Yeah.
with you. Cause
Yes.
I went to the dinner you had on a Friday, and it was a great time. You had the wounded soldiers there,
Uh-huh.
and you had you guys were there. And I remember some sergeant major. It was a great
Oh,
event.
yes, yes.
Okay. So you're going to do this again this year?
Oh, yes.
Escort 'em
Well,
to
we
the
did it
shore.
in November.
Okay.
Now, the year before this one, they bring 4 or 5 guys out, whatever they're allowed to come out here. And this one kid, I say he's a kid, he's probably 35 years old. But both legs were gone, one arm.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a T-shirt on one day when they went shooting, and it said, "Some assembly required." How a guy could like that could still have a sense of humor.
I was lucky, Steve, at that dinner. I sat next to a guy from New York State who lost, I think, a leg dismantling some type of bomb. But their attitude, they were so positive.
Oh, I
Life
know.
goes on. I'm
Yes.
going to college. Mr. McNeil, da 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 da. And it's like a little bump in the road.
Yeah,
It's a very
yeah.
courageous men. and
So,
women.
I know how, Vietnam affected some guys. By the way, I never got a Purple Heart. I was a lucky one. But I know a lot of guys got messed up in Vietnam. And how these kids today are doing it has been. I've got a son, my number 2 son. He's a career man.
Okay.
He's been for over at least 20 years now.
Good for
And he's
him.
been over three times already.
Army.
So, yes.
Army.
Yes.
We sometimes need to stop. We all get caught up in our lives and, oh, wow, we've got to pay this bill and, oh, we've got to cut the grass, whatever it is. There are men and women, as we speak, fighting battles, right?
Yes.
Engaged in combat.
Oh,
And
yes.
so we haven't got a lot to complain about, right?
No.
Which is good. Well, Steve, look, thank you. Hey, they were great stories. I wish somehow I magically could have given you back your orders and your identity in the military. I can't imagine anybody living, 4.5, 5.5 months without pay. That's
Yeah,
tough.
yeah.
That's tough.
It was-
And again, thank you for your service, all
Thank
right?
you.
Thank you for your great stories, all right? We're going to have you back in the future, okay?
Oh, sure. Love to.
And we're going to cover the event in November again.
Now, you do know about that March 30th thing?
No, we'll
right?
talk about that. We have time. What's March 30th?
The March 30th is going to be Welcome Home Vietnam Vet Day for the whole country.
Oh, for the whole country,
I'm
okay.
going to a banquet in Annapolis.
Oh, that's when they're taking the bus on. Dennis Reed or someone saying about a bus. Is that the...
Oh, no, I don't know
Okay.
anything about that one. But,
Anyway, it sounds like a good event. all
Yes,
right? 'Cause
yes.
I'm not sure the Vietnam veterans were welcomed home that well anyway.
no, they weren't, no.
okay.
I think I was lucky. I wasn't spit on or nothing like that.
No.
But I know a lot of guys that were.
It wasn't a pleasant time to be in the military.
And, I thought about it last year. I was thinking about this. It wasn't the seniors that did that. It was the
No.
people our age
Yeah.
that would disrespect the veterans when they came home.
And my feeling is you might not like the war, you might not like the politics, but you have to love and support the men and women in
Yes,
uniform.
exactly.
To me, that's without question. all
Yes,
right?
yes.
Again, Steve, thank you very much, all right?
Thank you.
And we'd like to thank everybody for watching QAC TV. You've been watching Veteran Stories. Every week we get delightful people like Steve Harty telling us his great stories about no pay, no identity, but usually they're very positive, as your story was, and great stories. Fred McNeil, thank you again. My time is up. Thank you for your time. We're going to see you next time.